you come to a point where things make sense and it fit, and then you have to either accept that or not. So now when we look at Champollion and the whole decipherment of the Rosetta Stone, which is basically what they tell us is how they was able to crack the code of the Egyptian hieroglyphics. And just right off the bat, anybody who really is into Kemet, I mean, your spidey senses should be tingling because it doesn't fit. Something doesn't fit about all that. And we're going to get into it. But you can be skeptical about the translation and everything the Europeans have to say about the decipherment of the Egyptian hieroglyphics. But then you have to still really ask yourself and look at the African scholars and Black scholars who have also followed Metu and have studied Metu and has said that it has been deciphered. You have to ask yourself, do you then trust them to have did their own research at some point to figure out what they are reading is true? Is the hieroglyphics deciphered? Do we know what it's talking about, what it's referring to, and what have you? So this is something you have to ask yourself and figure out, can you accept the Europeans' documents and what they're saying as far as the translation? And, can you accept the fact that, there have been African scholars who have did their own work and trust that they have done their own research and understand that the fact that they are following certain documents is because they have done their own research. So now when you start digging into this whole thing about the Rosetta Stone, you'll find out that the Rosetta Stone was found in the Nile Delta in a city called Rajid in Arabic, or Rossetti or Rosetta in French. It was found by one of Napoleon's soldiers. It was getting ready to be used in a rebuilding of Fort Julian, which was built and controlled by the Ottoman Empire until Napoleon came and took it over. So, it's a good thing they figured out it was something worth saving because it was getting ready to be used for scraps. But the Rosetta Stone, basically, it contains the three texts. We know the top text, ancient Egyptian, the middle text is Demotic, the bottom is ancient Greek. I know you guys know this stuff already, but I want to get into it for people who don't know about the Rosetta Stone because it's a lot to it, a lot more to it, that I have to explain. But, it has these three sets of texts, and this is the issue. You have, as I said, you have the ancient Egyptian. It's not complete, by the way. The stone should be a lot bigger than what it is. It's broken, obviously. It's chipped in places. But the top text is ancient Egyptian, the middle is Demotic, and the bottom is ancient Greek. And, the whole part about deciphering it was first trying to understand that all three sets of texts say the exact same thing. Now, Champollion is given the credit for deciphering the Rosetta Stone, but there's a lot of people who worked on it before he came along and basically, finished the thing off. The Rosetta Stone is basically talking about Ptolemy IV is talking about Ptolemy V and how he should be celebrated for his work and stuff like that. This is what the stone is talking about. Now, the whole issue is, of course, as I said, is trying to figure out, was the Greek talking about the same thing as the Demotic and the ancient Egyptian? And once they figured out it's talking about the same thing, now the whole problem was deciphering it, like figuring out how to match up the words, the corresponding words from Greek, which they already knew, the ancient Greek, the Demotic, which they was having trouble with, and of course, the ancient Egyptian, which they claim they had no clue how to decipher it. So Champollion basically deciphered the name Ptolemy from the Demotic text, and he did so using the Egyptian cartouche. And he determined that the phonetic properties of the Demotic text corresponds with the Egyptian hieroglyphics. So Demotic text is basically like the common language in Kemet. It was like a common language, according to Herodotus, who basically gave it that name. So you have Demotic, and before Demotic, you had the hieratic hieroglyphics. And a hieratic is basically like the priestly text of priestly writings. It was what they used when they had to write a whole lot. So basically, if you had to write a 2-page letter, if you use hieroglyphics only, then it would take a long time because hieroglyphics is basically really detailed. You got to draw stuff out. So hieratic was basically developed alongside of hieroglyphics. in case you had to write stuff like really, really long and put in document form. So this is what the priests use. They use a reed brush when they wrote in hieratic. It's that writing tool you see Thoth always had a little pen he has when he writes. So you have the demotic, you have the hieratic, and then you have cursive hieroglyphics. And cursive hieroglyphics is basically like what they used when they had to write like books or religious documents. And it's when you had to, do like a huge, large work, but it had to basically be in hieroglyphic form almost. So it's like a dumbed down version of hieroglyphics. When you look at it, you can see it's not as detailed as hieroglyphics, but they used it, when they had to write books and things like that. It had to be in the papyrus of Anu is written in cursive hieroglyphics, so to speak. So, you have the demotic, you have the hieratic, you have cursive hieroglyphics, and then you get to regular hieroglyphics, and then you can go further than that. Actually, you got regular hieroglyphics. You can get into the New Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and Old Kingdom hieroglyphics because they did things a little bit, different each time. So when you start getting into the writings of the ancient Egyptians, you start getting into the language and everything like that, it goes back. It's a lot that you have to deal with, that you can't just, look at a Rosetta Stone and decipher. We're talking about thousands of years of writing and language. So Champollion looked at the Rosetta Stone. He could see the ancient Egyptian, you could see the ancient Greek, and you have the demotic, which they knew was a Egyptian language that they actually spoke in Egypt. But we also know that Coptic came from demotic, and Coptic was the last language that they spoke in Kemet, before the Arabs came and basically took Kemet away from the Romans. Coptic was the language that they used, and Coptic basically has borrowed words from Greek. It is also similar in its alphabet to the Greek alphabet. So, again, the thing is, we always talk about how they stole our language. Then, this goes back all the way to ancient Kemet, where we know for sure that one, Coptic is basically like a Christian language. Basically, it's made for Christianity, and they created it and forced it on the Egyptians to basically get rid of the demotic language and to really instill Christianity in them. And we're going to see that a lot as we go through in this video, how Coptic was basically the language that came along and to try to basically hide Egyptian. Now, remember I said you have English was made for Christianity, Coptic as well, Arabic for the Quran, and Hebrew for Judaism, or what have you. These languages is created to cover up the true origins of the people and the religion itself. When you really get into it, it's there to cover it up. So understand, no matter what Champollion came up with, the problem is we are not going to know how the ancient Egyptian language actually sounds. How it sounds coming from them. So we can only speculate. We can only wonder, is it close? So no matter how much they worked on the Rosetta Stone, no matter how much we talk about it now, we're not going to know 100% for sure. Is what we are pronouncing and believing is the Egyptian language actually the language? Did it actually sound this way? Are we pronouncing words correctly? And this is one of the dilemmas that we find and that Champollion found when he was going through this whole deciphering. Champollion deciphered the name Ptolemy first. So he found two symbols in the name Ptolemy that matched the name of Thutmose and Ramses. So now we know that, again, we're not going to know exactly how the Egyptian names sound. We're not going to know that. But we do know that the Coptic comes from demotic. So Coptic, they understand. So if he can basically find the word in Coptic that corresponds or fits with ancient Greek, which they also understand, and that's on the Rosetta Stone, then that will help them to decipher the rest of the Rosetta Stone. Now, again, understand they already believe that it all says the same thing anyway. It's just written in different languages. But there's an opportunity now, since you have all this stuff in different languages, to basically break down exactly what the Egyptian hieroglyphics is saying. So if they can find in Coptic something that matches in ancient Greek, and then they will get the decipherment for the demonic and basically get the decipherment for the ancient Egyptian using these two symbols that he found in the name of Ptolemy, Moses, and Ramsey. So let me explain a little bit more. Okay, so let me explain. These are basically the two symbols that Champollion seen, that he saw in the Ptolemy cartouche, and he saw in the name for Moses and Ramses as well. So it looks something like, and forgive my hieroglyphic style. What you had? So two symbols right here that he got the letters MS, or the MIS sound, or the Ms sound for Coptic. So you have this symbol, which is the two symbols, but you can also have, let me see, and if you can see that. And he got the MS sound from these glyphs. So we know in Coptic, he looked and seen that MS basically translate in Coptic as to give birth. This is why we put MS in front of the woman's name, or MIS in front of the woman's name, and you get MS or MIS or MIS in Coptic. So we have MS or MIS means to give birth, and we have the word in English demise, which basically means death. So he saw this in the Moses and Ramses, the demise or the mess or that sound, and he basically figured out that it's in Coptic, and he looked at it in ancient Greek, and he saw a group of words referring to birthday. So that gave him a connection that he had birthday, and he had a word, basically Egyptian word meaning to give birth, and he made a connection from the Coptic to the Demotic to the ancient Greek, and it helped him basically decipher the stone. Now, obviously, this wasn't the same for all of the hieroglyphics, but it helped him to decipher what Coptic couldn't. So now you also got to remember that a lot of people wrote about ancient Egypt. This is one of the reasons why we know, of course, a lot of the things to be true. Why I always rag on the Hebrews, because, so many people wrote about ancient Kemet. And you have, the same with almost every single civilization. People wrote about these civilizations because they went there, they explored. And when you go to a different civilization, you already know, if you travel, when you go to like Aruba or Mexico, you know that this is totally different from where you come from. And it's something to talk about, and we post pictures today. So back then, of course, they wrote about and they talked about the different civilizations that they visited. So Kemet, of course, was written about a lot. And they already knew about some of the names of the pharaohs. They already knew about some of the customs and things like that. People like Herodotus, of course, they had access to those writings, Champollion and them, when they was doing this decipherment. So they had access to some stelas and some writings, and people already had like this basic understanding of some of the, let's just say, the myths or what have you of ancient Kemet. So it helped him in his decipherment. Now, some of the stuff he used some of the stelas and some of the stuff that people provided, but a lot of things he just basically took back to Coptic, since Coptic was working. So let me basically explain what he's seeing, and you basically have, let's see. Forget my cartouche drawing, but you'll have this, and So Champollion seen, okay, he looked at he said, you know what, this looks like a sun. And he said in Coptic, we know the sun is Ra or Ray. So you have Ra, and he said, you know what, this thing looks like an M. And you have Ra, Mes, which is Ramses. So Ra, Ramses, where they got, or Metu, is where they got it. And the thing is, when you see this, what you'll find out later is a lot of it is like abbreviation for the Greeks or the Romans. So sometimes when they did hieroglyphics, they didn't want to write the entire name, because we know Ramses' real name is like way longer than that. You need like 2 cartouches to get his name. So this is what they did. So another thing. You have, or let me see. Okay, so another thing that Champollion seen, he remembered, as I said, they had writings from Herodotus and Diodorus or what have you to help them out in their decipherment. So you have the ibis right here. He's seen the ibis, and he said, you know what, I remember Herodotus said that Thoth basically gave them the writing system, and he was represented by an ibis. So when he seen the ibis, he had Thoth. And then you had Moses, MS, MES, or MOS. So when he seen this glyph, he put together Thoth, Moses. And that's how you got the Thutmoses name. Again, the whole thing is, you could say it's not the same translation, or it's incorrect, but when you put it together, it actually fits with who they are talking about, which is Thutmoses. So it's a lot of different ways. When he went back and just simply used the Coptic, it was fitting with a lot of the things he was trying to decipher. So a lot of the cartouches and with a lot of the hieroglyphics, he just simply took it back to Coptic, or took it back to things that made sense. And this is like really clear, easy. You got Thoth, Moses. And when you look at the hieroglyph for Thoth, sometimes you see it going sideways and it looks basically just like that. So it's just some of the things that he used.